Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm not, usually when I come and share my story, I'm used to sitting on a panel, and now I'm like walking, someone said like TED Talk style, so this is a little different for me, but I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited that I was asked to come and be able to share my story with you guys. So I am 23 years old. I'm in recovery. I've been abstinent from substances, and also, as I get into my story, gambling is part of my story. And I've been abstinent from that for 2.5 years now. So I'm here to really just share my experiences, and hopefully you guys can get something out of it. I'll leave 5 minutes at the end, hopefully, to answer some questions if you guys had any about my story. There's no bad questions, anything that you may be curious about, or if anything was unclear, don't hesitate to ask a question at the end. So, I was not your age. I was your age not too long ago. I remember I would be coming to conferences. Sorry if I go back and forth a lot, but I'm from originally Montgomery County. I went to Churchill, if anyone's heard of Churchill. It's in Potomac, Maryland. And we would have, similar kind of conferences set up. And I remember when we would participate, when I would come to these conferences, and someone would share their story, I would think that this didn't apply to me, really. I just never thought that what I ended up experiencing was ever going to happen to me. I was very good at, throughout my high school experience and middle school and until I got to college, I was able to get by. Because I was book smart, I did well in school, so when I was in high school, I was really able to, the substances that I was using and the gambling, I was able to get by, and it never really caught up to me until I got to, until it caught up to me. So when I would say specifically my gambling really started at an early age, really in middle school. I didn't gamble with money per se, but I would be in my basement with my buddies, and we'd be betting on video games and ping pong, or I had a little basketball hoop in my basement. And like I said, it wasn't necessarily for money per se, but we would be playing for stupid dares, or just something that was on the line. And I just remember at a young age, I just really loved that feeling of competition, that adrenaline rush that it brought me. So I just love competition. I played sports my entire life as well. I was a big baseball player and basketball player in high school. So anything that brought competition was super, super exciting for me. And it was innocent then. It wasn't really a problem then. Obviously, I was in middle school. So kind of on the timeline going into high school, I had very strict, not pretty strict parents. I like to say helicopter parents, they call them. They always, try to instill in me just to be a good kid. And my mom, I remember, used to always say to me, don't smoke weed, and not to do all these kind of things. And she used to scare me that weed was always laced, and you never knew what weed was going to be when you got it, and you didn't know who you were buying it from. So I was actually the kid that would tell my friends that I'm probably never going to try this stuff. It's laced. I'm never going to do it. And it's just funny where that ended up turning out. But so freshman year in high school, I played varsity baseball as a freshman. So that came with knowing a lot of the older kids all the seniors, and that's when I started smoking weed, particularly for the first time, and it was kind of peer pressured. I kind of got hazed a little bit being a freshman, and they messed with me a lot. So that was kind of, even though I had that whole like lace persona, that they convinced me out of it. And I tried it. I liked it. I liked the way that it made me feel. And that just slowly escalated like throughout high school, kind of continued just me smoking weed more often. I definitely hung out with the fast crowd in high school. As I got older, just started smoking weed a little more. And then kind of tying into the gambling, I'm a little all over the place. The gambling, the weed, and the alcohol all went really hand in hand together. And when I started, the gambling started is when I was a freshman. So when the seniors from my baseball team graduated, one of the older kids, who was a freshman in college, reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in trying sports gambling. If anyone, I'm not sure if anyone's like familiar how that may work, but they texted me if I wanted to, a link with a username and password, and if I wanted to start betting on games. And like I said, I love sports and I love playing sports. So I thought that this was just gonna be a fun thing to do, bet a little money here and there, why not? So I started doing that again throughout high school. Wasn't really a problem. I got good grades. I stayed out of trouble like with the school. I was able to hide it really well from my parents. My parents, like I said, in middle school, they would hear me, gambling in the basement with my friends, and when they would like hear that like upstairs, like they never was really happy with what I was doing. So it was always something, even in high school. Like I said, before it got bad, it was always something that I had to hide. I wasn't really able to like openly do this in front of my friends. In front of my parents. I couldn't just, I obviously had to hide everything that I was doing. So, to kind of continue to finish out high school, I got my first college that I attended was Indiana University. I got into their business school there, and one thing that I wanted to do was join a fraternity, so I joined a fraternity at school there, and my roommate happened to be, or got involved with being a bookie, which is someone who takes bets, basically, is the one who, you pay if you lost money. And I basically kind of started earlier in my college career, just got heavily involved in that industry, in that world, and was just gambled all the time. And then just being part of a fraternity in Greek life, I cared about my social life a lot, and that just started to escalate as well. So I didn't really care that much about school, unfortunately. I had it all lined up for me. I was in one of the best business schools in the country, and I did not want to take advantage of that. I just wanted to have fun, be with my friends, meet a lot of people, and just like thrive socially. That was my main concern when I went to school. And so the gambling just started to escalate. My alcohol use and my drug use started to escalate as well. My drug of choice, and I'm a little nervous though. I didn't really touch on this back when I was in high school, but my drug of choice, if anyone's ever heard of it, was Xanax, which is a anti-anxiety medication. It's like very fast acting. So when you take that pill, it just makes you feel super relaxed. And I've always had like anxiety in high school, just like general anxiety with high school, just like with work and school and pressure with sports or whatever came with that. So when I tried that drug for the first time, and again, I wasn't using it on a quote-unquote problematic rate, but I just love the way that it made me feel. It was just so immediate, and it just really took away all that stress that I had. And I obviously wasn't prescribed it, and I used it improperly. And unfortunately, that was just a popular drug as well in college, and like going around my fraternity, and it was like a party drug too somehow, and mixing it with alcohol, and it really messed you up. And so you guys can only imagine when I would mix alcohol with drugs, with gambling, nothing good came out of it. And freshman year, I was also pledging this fraternity, and I was just a mess. I wasn't doing well in school. I wasn't really going to classes. I had no priorities. My priorities were not straight. Sophomore year, I was living in the fraternity house, and I started to. This is when the gambling really started to uptake, and I started to experiment with like betting money that I didn't have access to and that I couldn't pay. So sophomore year, I was living in the fraternity house, pretty much failing all my classes, not doing well. And I've been losing a significant amount of money that I didn't have. Not much more I could do to hide it. I had to go to like my dad and get like bailout because I didn't want to like lose, even though I was gambling under like my friends, I didn't want to like lose my friends. So, I told my dad what was up, and I ended up getting pulled from school to come home to go to treatment. Because my parents weren't going to, throw their money away on an education that I wasn't taking seriously. So I guess at the time I kind of understood it, but I wasn't ready to come to the fruition that I had a problem or that I had an addiction. I just thought that everything that I was doing in college and in high school, I was just being stupid, I was just making poor decisions, and that I don't have an addiction. I wasn't ready for that, and that's kind of what was starting to kind of get implanted to me when I went to my first treatment. Is that it sounds like you have an addiction, Jordan, because I was betting with money I didn't have. The amount of drugs that I was taking, and like Xanax and the alcohol that I was drinking, like on paper, it looked like I had a problem. But I didn't want to, label myself as that. I was, embarrassed. I cared about what other people thought about me. I just didn't want to be thought of as that. So I got pulled from school. I ended up doing an outpatient program an outpatient program is basically I was just commuting from home. I was living back at home, driving pretty much to a facility like it was school every day, and I would participate in like therapy and groups. And one thing they try to like instill in these treatment centers is this idea of like sobriety and abstinence is the best way to be if you come to terms that you have an addiction. And I was not sold on that concept. I was like, yeah, the gambling is a problem. The Xanax I was taking and the weed I was smoking and the weed I was smoking was maybe a problem, but I don't have an addiction. I don't need to be quote unquote sober. I was just really focused on, at the time, and I was 19 then, that I just wanted to get back to Indiana University, show my parents that I could do this program, and they drug tested me there. I showed up every day, I paid attention, but I just wanted to get back on good terms with my parents so I could go back to Indiana University right where I was. I was still talking to my friends at school and just put myself right back out there. And I envisioned that when I got back there, things were just going to be different. I wasn't going to do the same things that I was doing. And so that's what I did. I paid attention. I went to this program and I stayed sober. So that means I wasn't gambling, I wasn't using. This program lasted about a year, so this was October 2019. I did that all the way through that summer of 2020. And I actually wanted to go back to school that January, but my parents were like, no shot. So I ended up gaining, I guess, the trust back from my parents and showing them that showing them that I was better. And I go back to Indiana University, put myself right back into that same environment. I was getting drug tested by my parents because that was like part of the rules for me going back to school, is that I couldn't, even though I wanted to start drinking again, and like I said, I was pretty set that I wasn't going to gamble or use my substances of choice again. They still didn't want me to drink, even though I was like, I wanted to drink. And I wasn't drinking for a while. I was doing pretty well for a while. And eventually, I couldn't do it anymore. I was hanging around the same people. I was still trying to go out socially and go out to parties and have fun and not drink. And I was just super uncomfortable and I was just not happy. So I thought I needed to start drinking again. So I started finding ways to get around my drug test. And started drinking again. And when I started drinking again, I started smoking again, and then I started picking up those drugs again, and then I started gambling again. And it just went on a terrible downhill spiral from there, very slow and painful. Somehow I got through that rest of the year at Indiana. It's hard to say my entire life story and everything that's happened the past 5 years and 15 minutes, but I ended up making it through that school year, and I would like to say I kind of hit my rock bottom towards the end of the year. I don't know how I made it. And things were so bad. I was in such a bad place. I got caught, because I didn't have terrible friends, but it's not like I was able just to openly do the same habits that I did the first time around in front of them. I kind of had to show that I had things under control, but the gambling was one thing they looked out for me on, and when they caught me gambling again, it just got bad, and I was out of control. I knew at that time when I got to that point that I lost control of what I was doing. I had no control over what I was doing, and luckily I came to the willingness that at this age that I need help. I realized that I didn't really care anymore what people thought about me. I just need to start doing this for myself. I want to get better. I was tired of feeling the way that I was. I'm grateful that with the drugs I never overdosed or got in crazy debt. So I had to go back to treatment. I went to California for 3 months, and this time I took it, because I told my parents everything, and this time I took it super seriously, and I was ready to get better. And ever really since then, my sober date, my abstinence date, April 27th, 2021, and I went to California that summer. I just took everything super seriously, just kind of treated it like a job almost, and I'm gonna pay attention, listen to other people's perspective. I realized that I don't have all the answers, and it's not unfortunate, I just have an addiction. I'm gonna have an addiction. I had to realize for the rest of my life. That's just part of me. My brain works differently. You'll learn in school that addiction is a disease. Our brains are just wired differently. When I put substances in my body, I can't stop. I just go. And I had to realize that to come to that acceptance. And the only way that I can live a meaningful life is if I don't touch those. I have to practice sobriety. That's just what I have to do. It's my medicine is staying away from the drugs and the gambling, because if I do that, I'm gonna live a worthless life, in my opinion. So life's gotten so much better since I stopped. I still do meetings, and I speak at places like this, share my story. It's good for my recovery. I hope you guys got something out of this. I am graduating in December at University of Maryland. I'm going to go to school for psychology. Now what I want to do is just, thank you. So I transferred to Maryland, obviously, and I'm I'm doing psychology. I may get my doctorate in psychology or social work. I'm currently like in that application process, but now I just like want to help other people. I don't want other people to go through what I had to go through. I care about like the stigma of addiction. It's not, you should never be ashamed if you have a problem or if you struggle with something. The earlier you catch it, the better. Because I'm only 23. Everyone who's older in recovery tells me that. I'm so grateful that I realized this at a young age. Trying to think if anything else I'm missing. But yeah, life's good now, and I'm just grateful that I don't, do that stuff anymore. And it's just good to be aware. And yeah, I gotta wrap up. Thanks for letting me share, guys.